We have talked a lot this semester about internal validity, but we're also interested in external validity. And particularly, we want to know that the research we've done here can be applied here. So one of the things we need to be thinking about is what population have we actually assessed, and recognize that it is a population, but not everybody in the US or not everybody in the world. External validity comes from how we've collected our data, not how many participants. So, for example, I can have perform a study with 20,000 participants, but maybe all of them are white Mormons and male. Can I generalize to other groups? Maybe, maybe not. And just because a sample comes from a particular population doesn't mean that it actually generalizes to that population. I may have dog owners in my population or in my sample, but that doesn't mean that that my conclusions are going to be representative of all dog owners. So part of what we're asking about is ecological validity. So to what degree does our laboratory study generalize to the real world setting? If I am, like Gottman did with his study of married couples, if I am studying couples' arguments in the lab, does that actually predict how they behave outside the lab? Now, one of the things we know is their behavior in the lab predicts the probability that they're going to divorce, in which case we are more comfortable with our conclusions here. Does a study have to be generalizable to everybody? Not if we're in theory testing mode. So Harlow's research on contact comfort, was done with rhesus monkeys in the lab. That's not a situation that's high in, ecological validity. And yet, his research, what he found is that baby rhesus monkeys, when given a choice between the mother with the bottle or the cloth mother, can preferentially spend time on the cloth mother. That supports his theory that it's not the food that makes babies like their moms, but the fact that they're warm and cuddly. On the other hand, the parent is grammar coach theory. The researchers studied children and their language use, and parents corrected some kinds of language errors. So, for example, if a toddler says, doggy, and points to a horse, parents are likely to say, no, Susie, that's a horse. If Susie says, I goed to my friends yesterday, parents are likely to go, yep. They don't say, Susie, it's, I went to your parent or to my friends yesterday. So in this case, What we have is a situation where our data does not support our theory and we revised it. It didn't really matter that all of the participants were from the Boston area. You know, it was their findings were inconsistent with the theory. And so sent the researchers back to the drawing board. Now, some kinds of things we do need to have need to be generalizable to everyone. So if you're doing a survey, if you're collecting frequency data, that's important, you know, to have a generalize or have it in generalization mode. Sometimes association and causal claims are in generalization mode. For example, when we're testing a new therapeutic approach, or when we have a new product, we initially may do that with focus groups. External validity is important when in generalization mode. There we want a representative sample. When we are actually collecting data in the real world, or in a field setting, it has high external validity. We're pleased. But we can also have good external validity when research is performed in a laboratory. So we may learn about competition, both when we're observing people out in the field, you know, out running track, but also when they're competing in a laboratory situation. So here's an example of a field experiment where the researchers are asking whether international aid really works. So the researchers and nonprofits in 6 developing countries teamed up, going to thousands of communities to find the poorest families, then divided the families into 2 groups, half receiving no aid, the other half a whole bunch of aid for 1 to 2 years. They monitored family income and food consumption. Think about what the independent variable is and the dependent variable. The researchers, Banerjee et al., said that the family's income and food consumption together went up by only about 5% on average when compared with the control group. Think about what kind of validity they're talking about. And finally, what do you think about the ethics of this approach? Is it fair to withhold aid from families like this? And take care. Please work on this question before you go on to your next video. Take care. Bye-bye.